Why have you been attracted to the wrong men? Hello and welcome to this How to Love Successfully podcast with me, Dr. Mari Kovanen. I'm a registered psychologist and a conscious dating coach. And today we'll be talking about why you've been attracted to the wrong person, why you have ended up in the wrong type of relationship that has created a lot of heartache for you. So we'll be talking about what are the internal motivations, what are the forces driving you towards certain type of people, and how to then start changing that. But first of all, would you like to feel blissful when you go on your first date? I have created pre-date bliss meditation, which helps you to calm your nervous system and help you to feel really nice and relaxed when you go on your date, so that then you can be present and engage with that more playful side of you and really have a great date, regardless of what happens after that date. But let's go back to our topic today. So, why have you been attracted to the wrong relationship? And so perhaps you are now there dating or thinking about dating. And when you are looking at your track record in relationships, you are thinking that perhaps something needs to change, or you're wondering that maybe there is something that needs to change about your relationship patterns. Perhaps you've ended up in relationships with people who are quite distant and you need a lot of closeness. Perhaps you've ended up in relationships where the other person is not committed to the relationship, or perhaps you've ended up in situationships that are very confusing, or maybe you've ended up in relationships where you ended up there but you're not quite sure why. Or perhaps you've ended up in relationships where the other person has been more keen than you, and now you would finally like to meet that person where you can then build a committed long-term relationship and have a happy future together. Okay. So last week, we talked about attachment adaptations. So that bond between a baby and a primary caregiver, and how those early relationships then may impact your dating experiences and relationship experiences. And so we are kind of continuing on the same theme. So what's really important to understand is that, of course, in early relationships, we create relationship blueprints. And these blueprints will remain in your body. And whenever you go in relationships or whenever you meet other people, these experiences will get activated in relationships. And often what I tell my clients is that you may know that perhaps you want to create a very different type of relationship, or that maybe there are certain relationship dynamics that you don't want to repeat in your adult relationships. And perhaps from childhood, you learn certain things about relationships, and now you realize that you want something very different. And what is important for you to understand, of course, is that these are often very unconscious things and dynamics, these blueprints. They are literally in your body, and your body gets activated in a certain way in certain situations. In a previous episode, I talked about the psychopatology of dating. And essentially, we have these internal forces which are guided by evolution and our psychobiology, where we get activated in a certain way in certain situations. And there are two really important forces for us to understand, which are, of course, wanting to attach and connect with other people, but also then that the whole body and the brain and everything, the nervous system, are about survival. And what happens then is that we unconsciously gravitate towards the same dynamic as we had in our early relationships, in our family environment. And many people may say, okay, I want something completely different. But what happens is that a person may look very different on paper. And even in the early days, it seems like this is a completely new situation, new dynamic. But slowly and quite surely, you may realize over time that if you end up in a certain type of relationship, that the same type of relationship patterns are being created, which remind you of your family of origin. And why we gravitate towards those dynamics is that because there is this unconscious wish to resolve something that didn't get resolved in our early childhood. So perhaps there was a need that didn't get met. And then in adulthood, we try to meet that need. But if we are co-creating this same dynamic, again, it requires then work to resolve that. So you may have, for example, had a very critical parent. And then in your adult relationships, you may end up with someone who is not appreciating all parts of you. And maybe they are criticizing you and certain characteristics. And especially if you haven't owned those parts yourself. So perhaps your needs didn't get met as a child. Maybe there was a parent who didn't appreciate certain qualities within you. And maybe you haven't learned to appreciate those qualities either. And then maybe you attract a person who also does not appreciate these certain qualities. So this same dynamic is being repeated. Or maybe you had an absent parent or very distant parent. And then you may, in your adult relationships, gravitate towards a person who is quite distant, someone who needs a lot of space if you need a lot of closeness. And so then it feels like you're always missing out on, or the other person is not fully committed to this relationship. So you are often experiencing similar type of feelings as you experienced in your early relationships. And of course, all of these adult relationships, they leave a mark on you too. If they have been good relationships, they can help you to recover. And if they have been complicated dynamics, they can leave a mark on you too. And it may be more difficult for you to trust another person, for example. The research shows that although many people say that they want to change their relationship dynamics, often they still end up in a similar type of dynamic. It does not have to happen though. So why is it then that so many women who say that they want to have a different kind of relationship, that my next relationship is going to be so different, but what is it then that attracts them to that same type of dynamic? So maybe it could be that often women are quite forgiving and maybe not quite listening to their gut feeling. So in the early stages of dating, of course, you go to these dating situations with the knowledge you have. And then depending on your level of self-awareness, of course, you enter the dating situation. And sometimes it could be that there are external pressures, such as the feeling of that you need to find a relationship. There's the biological clock ticking, or your family is always asking that, have you found someone? And it feels like you are somehow under pressure. And maybe you haven't quite connected with your internal guiding system. So maybe when you meet someone, and they may seem very charming on the outset, they may seem like they're a very different type of person. And maybe you feel that there's this pressure to move on quite quickly and deepen the relationship. And perhaps you even end up in a situationship. And maybe you hope for the best. And maybe you give benefit of the doubt and ignore certain early, small but significant signs. And then you end up in this relationship with the person who is not the right fit for you. So how do you then change it? You change it by becoming very, very conscious of yourself. This requires a lot of reflection, self-analysis, having coaching or therapy to really understand your early patterns and the unhealed wounds, and then starting to think, how can I heal? How can I nurture those parts of myself that didn't get nurtured? How can I give myself what I didn't get in my childhood? And when you then start really approaching dating from a perspective of, I am whole, I am this whole person wanting to meet another whole person, and then together we co-create this relationship where it's closeness, but there's also separation. It is not enmeshed and completely tangled up, and neither it is too distant. So it really requires you to become very self-aware, start practicing a lot of self-love. And this is what I'll be talking so much in the future sessions, because it is absolutely essential for you to really find the right kind of relationship. It starts from you and from you loving yourself first and really appreciating all parts of yourself. Then, once you have more clarity on yourself, on the relationship patterns that you do not want to repeat, it's then important that you create an idea of what it is that you really want. What type of relationship do you want to have? And really do some meditating, do some practices on really getting in that emotional state where you want to be and how you want to feel in that relationship. And then describing to yourself, what does the person who I want to meet, what do they look like? Not necessarily appearance, but what kind of characteristics do they have? What kind of behaviors do they exhibit? And really being so super clear on what you are aiming for. And also then being really slow on the dating process, really giving yourself time to get to know someone and allowing it to unfold. Because if you have ended up in the wrong relationship in the past, you don't have time, you don't have energy, and you don't want to put your heart online too early. I know it can be frustrating because many of us maybe want, you may want to get to the good parts, but actually all of this, getting to know someone, is part of creating a conscious relationship and really identifying whether this person is the right person for you, or maybe someone else would be a better match. Are they on the same page with you? Do they want to have a similar type of things in life? Do they want to create a similar type of relationship? Or do they want to have a completely different type of relationship? Taking it slow is so important. And I know in this modern world, everything's so fast and it feels like there's this pressure to move on quickly. But your life, your heart is at stake here. It's really important to pay attention and notice all of your bodily sensations, because your body will tell you so much about whether this person is the right person or not? Does it feel safe in that person's company? Or is there a niggling anxiety in your stomach that is telling you something, that everything's not quite right? If there's one thing to take, it's really the piece of self-awareness and go into real depth in understanding yourself. And then the change can start to happen. It does not mean that you have to have all parts of you healed. It just means that you have this willingness to look inwards and really understand yourself and create a different kind of future for yourself. So I hope you found this useful. Please go and leave a review. I would absolutely love that. And please also go and remember to follow and share with someone. Is there a friend or colleague or someone or sibling maybe even who needs to hear this message too? Please share the message so that all women out there have the understanding of what it takes to start changing their relationships for the better. Because there are many wonderful men out there. But if you keep going towards the wrong guys, then these men will never have a chance with you, and they might be the right person for you. So please remember, give yourself the love you're seeking first, and then you will attract the love you want. Bye for now. See you next time.